Hey guys, we're back. It's been a minute since the last time we've done this, but the UI of the Beholder update is finally complete. We started working on it in March, and we thought we'd have it out the door in about a month or two. And that may have been a bit of an overestimation, but that does not matter because the update is done, and it is live on Steam right now. So you may be asking what's in the UI of the Beholder update. And to answer that, I'll have to tell you a story. A long time ago, when Minigunner still looked like this, we noticed that there was a problem. The problem was that the buttons in the shop would straight up lie to you. You could very easily get them to break and end up buying items that didn't even look like they were selected. But as it turns out, fixing this wasn't really that easy, as most of our fixes would ruin the buttons if you tried to play the game with a controller. So we decided that we were going to rebuild the way our buttons work from the ground up. And what we ended up creating was a dedicated navigational indicator, which shows while you're hovering over a button. And now only one button can be selected at a time, and it plays nice with both controllers and mouse and keyboard alike. All of our attempts to break the buttons with weird clicks and drags just leaves them unfazed and working perfectly. And so now we don't have to feel ashamed of our buttons anymore, which I think is pretty great. After we fixed our buttons, we decided that this would be a good time to give the shop some much needed TLC. Which I thought meant time, love, and care, but apparently means tender, loving care. Either way, now we have proper animations for buying items, and they each leave behind a little sold card, with the random option also having its own animation for when you disable it by buying something else. We also finally added a proper animation for using the random option. With some fantastic sound effects from Dylan King, our audio designer, it's made rolling rares and legendaries somehow feel more amazing than they already did. Taking a look at our combat UI, we realized that maybe the icons you get for different status effects weren't the best at actually telling you what they did. Like, you could probably tell what a few of the basic ones meant, but can you take a look at this and immediately know exactly what it means? How about this one? Or these? So to fix that, we implemented these handy little tooltips which show when you hover over the icons, and they tell you exactly what they mean. Now, no more confusion over what the heck this thing is trying to tell you. You can just hover over it. And honestly, in hindsight, we probably should have had these from the start, but game development is a learning process, so better late than never. The Tactical Assistance Buddy, or TAB for short, plays a pretty big part in our game. So we decided to give it a wide degree of improvements. We added a neat animation for opening it and a slight blurring effect to the background behind it. Now you can also see your stats effect icons here and get info about them as well. Not only that, but we've also added tooltips for just about everything that shows on the minimap. So hover over them all to your heart's content. And this also includes your weapons and abilities on the stats page. So if you don't remember all the details about how your passive works while playing a run, you can see that super easily now. The improvements made to the tab screen also extend to the underground catacombs, where you can hover over the rooms you've discovered to see what they are and what they generally offer. Our biggest player feedback from the catacombs was that even though there's a lot of exciting options and decisions to make, there was a very sharp learning curve in figuring out what each of the transaction stations actually do. Because it was impossible to know beforehand, as a new player, you'd have to blindly open these doors, using a precious keycard by the way, only to discover that you couldn't actually do anything in that room, and that was never our intention. As the developers, we obviously knew what each transaction station did, and when we played, we didn't have this issue. We skipped straight to the fun part without any of the struggle. So, to fix all of this, we made it so that if you press yourself against a locked keycard door, you can peer into the room and get descriptions of what the interactables inside do. And as a bonus, we also added a super sweet animation for when you actually manage to open the maximum security safe. So now that the ball was rolling, there were a lot of random things in our game that we wanted to make better. And though we ended up doing a lot of things, here are the highlights. We added a screen effect for taking the different color teleporters, also a new sound effect too. We added cooldown flashes over your abilities in the bottom right, so it's easier to tell when they become ready again without having to be looking directly at them. We added explosions, leaving behind blast marks that are different depending on the size and type of the blast that created them. And we even made your health capsules tremble in fear when you get to critical health. The game over screen is one that you see almost every time you play the game, so it was only right that we gave it the full UI polishing treatment. And now, it has an animation of it dropping down and tallying up all your stats to show you the final score. When you lose by dying, it is splattered by a healthy amount of dripping red blood. And when you lose by having your reactor destroyed, you can see burning pink embers rising from its remains. We also added new animations for both unlocking new items and unlocking new playable mercenaries. Okay, so this isn't UI related, like at all. But I decided to do a full pass at every enemy attack in the game to improve how they look. Now they're properly glowy and way easier to see on the screen with all the chaos that can happen in the late game. Especially the empowered attacks, since their center goes from white to black. Now they have a white outline that adds some much needed visibility for attacks that are dealing double damage. Plus, now all attacks have a really nice merging effect when multiple projectiles overlap with each other. Also, melee enemies now all have an actual warning indicator for their melee attacks. And I finally made a different looking melee attack for bosses too. As mentioned before, this update brings an insane amount of new sound effects to a billion different things. But one specific thing that I was initially against was the idea of adding footstep sounds in Minigunner, as your character doesn't necessarily have a walking animation, because you can't see their legs. It's just a little guy moving and rolling around. But I'm glad I changed my mind, because no words can truly get across how cool it is to hear the footstep sounds you make when walking on the different types of ground. It's such a small thing, but I love hearing the snow crunching as I walk over it, and then hearing the metal tippy taps when I step onto a high ground platform. Also, with the way we implemented it, your footsteps will get quicker alongside your movement speed. So now you can really feel it when you get faster. And I can't imagine going back to how it was without this. Another thing I did this update was rebalance quite a few items across the board. But I have to single out a change we made to the Minigunner's power shot ability. It now deals double damage to bosses. Now, this doesn't sound that crazy. It goes from doing 100 damage to 200. But if you get like 2 or 3 key items and a surveillance drone, you can start a boss fight by doing this. Even though the Minigunner is supposed to be great at single target damage, his ability just felt so underwhelming in boss fights before. So with this change, now you can finally feel the power in the power shot. Also, I just love huge damage numbers. This is great. Alright, so this stuff is all well and good, but there's no way that it took us over 8 months to do everything I've shown so far. The truth is, another key reason we even decided to do this whole UI overhaul in the first place was because the character select screen we've had this whole time kinda sucked. Like, a lot. And as much as it pained me, nobody would ever read any of their abilities. Then they'd hop in game and have no idea what their character did, or why there were these glowy arrows over some of their items. Also, nobody knew how to unlock new characters. They'd see them blacked out in the selection menu, but we didn't give them much more info than that. Plus, the background art was kinda lame, At least for the character select. The main menu background was better, but even then it was pretty outdated, as it was based on how the map looked in the olden times. And also before we really fleshed out the setting that the game takes place in as a whole. So the first thing I started working on at the start of the update, that again was all the way back in March, was a completely new layout and interface for the character select UI. This actually wasn't so bad, and it wasn't only until I got to updating the background art that I ran into a roadblock. I quickly realized that art is hard, and I wasn't really making anything I was happy with. So instead of getting bogged down in this, we decided to just knock out all other UI improvements first, and then come back to this last. I remember sitting down to work on these screens again in early summer, but I completely struggled to make anything remotely decent. I decided to put the character select art to the side and try my hand at redoing the main menu art instead. It took like 2 entire months for me to even get the broad direction down of what I wanted this to look like. And I started making concept sketches on some sticky notes on my desk. Eventually, one day, I randomly had a crystal clear vision of exactly what I wanted this new art to look like. The main menu art would be a far shot of the mining outpost that shows its immense scale, and the huge distress beacon you see in the game is dwarfed by the towers rising behind it. In the foreground, you see the player's spaceship with its engine still smoking, and over everything, you see white flakes of snow gently drifting down. The really cool idea I had was the whole sky and lighting would change depending on the difficulty you have chosen. So easy mode would be in the morning, normal mode would be a little past noon, and hard mode would be just after dusk with the sky full of stars. And I still don't even know how, but I actually did it. So with the momentum I now had, I decided to give the character select background art another shot. The main menu art actually reeled now. I knew right away what I wanted this art to look like. It would be a cross-section of a building with the player's character in the center, and it'd be set in the heart of the outpost, nestled between large mining and industrial buildings in all directions. This took a few weeks, but progress was steady, and eventually I ended up coming up with something that I was really happy with. So with all the art done, I at long last finalized the UI for this screen. Now all the text has been simplified, and the player can hover over their weapons and abilities to get tooltips on what they do. They can also hover over locked characters to see how to get them. And we even added an easy way for them to track their character-specific achievements, so you always had something to go for when starting runs as a new player. Which is really good, because before this point, new players would just get thrown into this relatively challenging roguelike and have their only goal to be to win the game, which obviously wasn't going to happen right away. And it kind of sucked not having any easier to obtain goals before then. We had these achievements and progression in the game for years, but it was all buried in menus that new players were definitely not getting to. And now this is fixed. The menus are done, the art is done, everything is actually done. We even got around to taking out the trash, scrubbing the hallways, and cleaning the toilets. Wait, what? We didn't do any of that. I guess someone else did? That aside, we're super excited to have finally gotten this massive update out, and we're looking forward to getting to work on the gameplay itself again soon. But in the meantime, check out the UI of the Beholder update if you haven't already. And be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see future updates as they come out. Hopefully, none will take nearly as long as this one has. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.